For as long as we've been human, we've been wrestling with two massive questions. Why do we have to die? And could we live forever? The quest for immortality is an ancient dream. But today, it's not just a dream. It's a booming, billion-dollar industry. So in this explainer, we're going to slice through all that noise and get right to the heart of the new science of aging.
But first, we really have to start with a reality check. And our guide here is the Nobel Prize winning biologist Venki Ramakrishnan. He basically says, look, the longevity field is super hyped up, to the point where the business and the marketing are way ahead of the actual proven science. And that's the central tension we're going to explore.
All right, so first up, let's tackle the hype versus the science. And we have to start with the hype, right? It's a world just packed with these incredible promises to turn back our biological clocks. And some of the claims out there get pretty wild. You've got stuff like cryonics, the idea of freezing your body, hoping that future science can somehow bring you back. Just to be clear, there's zero scientific basis for that right now. Then there's this almost vampiric idea of young blood transfusions, which was inspired by some experiments where older mice seemed to get a boost from the blood of younger ones. And this whole quest can get ridiculously expensive. Take tech entrepreneur Brian Johnson. He reportedly spends $2 million a year on a super disciplined regimen to try and reverse his own aging. For a time, that routine even included transfusing blood from his own son. So, when you see all this money, all this speculation, all this marketing, it just makes you wonder, right? Beyond all the hype, what does the evidence actually tell us about why we age, and is there anything we can really do about it? Okay, to answer that, we have to look at the fundamental biology. And the reason we age, well, it isn't just random wear and tear, like an old car breaking down. It's actually something much deeper, something rooted in an evolutionary trade-off. Here's the most important thing to get. Our biology is not optimized for living forever. It's optimized for what biologists call fitness, and all that means is the ability to survive long enough to have kids and pass on your genes. After that, from evolution's point of view, its job is kind of done. This all leads to a core concept in aging science, with a very fancy name, antagonistic pleiotropy. I know, it sounds super complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It just means that some genes that give you a huge advantage when you're young, helping you grow and heal and reproduce, can turn around and have negative side effects that cause aging later on. Let me give you a perfect example. Our body's amazing defense against cancer. Early in life, if a cell's DNA gets damaged, the body slams on the brakes and stops that cell from dividing. It's literally a lifesaver. But, and here's the trade-off, as we get older, that same exact mechanism leads to this pileup of damaged, non-dividing cells. Scientists call them zombie cells, and they just sit around leaking inflammatory chemicals that help drive the aging process all over our bodies. And this process builds up into a whole cascade at the cellular level. So first, just by being alive, our DNA is constantly taking hits. Second, our telomeres, think of them like the little plastic tips on your shoelaces, but for your chromosomes, they get shorter every time a cell divides. Eventually, if the damage is too much, or the telomeres get too short, the cell enters that zombie state, which is called senescence. And from there, these zombie cells just hang around, pumping out inflammatory stuff that damages the healthy cells nearby. Okay, so if that's the fundamental process, we're back to that billion-dollar question. Can we do anything to slow it down? Let's look at what the science says actually works, from the stuff that's proven to the stuff that's, well, a lot more speculative. Now, before we get to the sci-fi pills and therapies, the evidence is absolutely overwhelming for the basics. You can think of it like a three-legged stool for a better health span. That's the period of your life you spend in good health. And those three legs are a balanced diet, regular exercise, and getting enough sleep. I know, it's not sexy, but these are incredibly powerful, accessible tools that support your body's repair systems.
But of course, the real excitement, the real hype in this field is all about pushing beyond those foundations. Is there a pill out there, a therapy that can truly turn back the clock?
Well, here's a look at the cutting edge of the research. You've got caloric restriction. It works great in animals, but it's incredibly difficult for humans to stick to. That's led to research into drugs like rapamycin, which kind of mimic those effects, but they come with risks, like suppressing the immune system. And then there's this really exciting area called senolytics. These are drugs designed to hunt down and clear out those zombie cells. It's super promising, but the huge challenge is making sure they only target the bad cells. So with all this going on, what's the limit? Well, to date, the longest any human has been verified to live is 122 years. And even though average life expectancy keeps going up, that absolute maximum, that ceiling, it hasn't really budged. But biology shows us that other things are possible. Compare our lifespan to the Greenland shark. This thing can live for up to 700 years, thanks to a super slow metabolism and really robust DNA repair. So we know extreme longevity is possible in nature. It just requires a completely different evolutionary playbook.
And that brings us to a really critical takeaway. Even if we cured all the major killers tomorrow, cancer, heart disease, all of it, that would probably only add about 10 to 15 years to our average lifespan. To break through that 120-year barrier and live dramatically longer, we couldn't just cure the diseases of old age. We would have to rewrite the fundamental biological process of aging itself.
And that possibility forces us to shift from the scientific question of how can we do this, to the much deeper, more philosophical question of should we? What would be the price of a radically longer life?
Seriously, think about it. If we succeed, we might face some huge societal problems. A world with less turnover could become stagnant, with new ideas struggling to take hold. You could have older generations holding on to wealth and power for centuries. And of course, there are massive ecological questions about resources. It creates this powerful conflict between what's good for me as an individual and what's good for us as a species.
And here's the thought experiment that really gets to the heart of it. Let me ask you, if there was a completely safe, validated pill that guaranteed you 10 more years of healthy life with no side effects, would you take it? I mean, I think almost every single one of us would say yes. And that impulse, multiplied by billions of people, is what makes this conversation so complex and so important.
And all this leaves us with a final thought from the poet Rabindranath Tagore. In our whole quest to conquer aging, his words are a powerful reminder that maybe, just maybe, it's the fact that life is finite that gives our time meaning. It forces us to focus not just on the quantity of our years, but on the quality of the moments within them.